Yep.
Hey, long days and pleasant nights. Welcome back to Walk Along the Beam, episode 17, part 4. We're talking about the Talisman here, and hopefully the finale of the Talisman. We've been talking about this book for quite a minute. I mean, 4 episodes. If you think about it, that's a whole month in itself, four weekends. Um, but
It's a
introduce
big
my
book.
guest.
It's a
Yeah,
big book.
it is, and it's a fantastic book, but it's pretty big. But Steve, how you doing tonight?
It's Saturday night. The weather is finally, it was 24 degrees Celsius today, so hitting into the
So
70s there Fahrenheit. So it's getting
man,
it's
we
getting nice.
we got a massive snowstorm here, like Friday and Saturday and Sunday. So I guess we're
You're up in the
getting,
mountains.
yeah. It's kind of normal.
Nature's pissed with us
Um,
anyway, so she's dropping her back down to like single digits.
agreed.
Tonight.
You froze for a second. I lost you, Steve. Oh, there you go. All right, so we were talking about the Talisman. We had left off at chapter 32. I don't think this is broken down to books or parts or anything. No, it's not. All right, so we are moving along. I'm skipping one part just because it's mainly filler, but it's an interlude part, but not really skipping it. But I incorporated it into something else, and I'll kind of touch base when we get there. Um, so chapter 33, Richard in the Dark. Jack tries standing up to the Elrich twinner, and this is kind of why I did that because I have no idea why there was an interlude between this segment here. It's really bugging because we're going through this heavy action scene with these two kids at this college, and all of a sudden there's this interlude in between there about this guy's dad still kind of buffering around, America. I mean, okay, so
Yeah,
Jack,
Straub.
yeah. So Jack tries standing up to the Elridge twinner using the Queen's name, which causes the twinners to twitch. Then the Elrich twinner, and that's just kind of a nickname the book gives to him because
Yep.
it's kind of like his his appearance has a bug-like, like squid-like. I mean, it varies and changes, but it's kind of got this Cthulhu vibe going on. So that's why they keep mentioning this eldritch form. All these guys kind of look like this, and the college has because it's transformed as they were moving around, or not college. Is it college? Is it like honor school,
It's a
something like that?
university or something.
Yeah. Okay, so he tries using the queen's name. It does kind of stun the thing for a second, but not really. The Elrich twinner tries talking to Richard, telling him that things could go back to normal if Richard just gives him Jack. The thing attempts different vices to convince Richard. And this is also kind of weird because it's not one thing that is talking to these boys. They're doing it from like kind of like a We Are Legion scenario where they're like, it's like four things out there and they're all like talking through these four things, but really when you get down to it, it's like Morgan. Um, he's just talking through these things, kind of like a puppet. Um, so we go by. Richard goes into the closet with smells of fire um, around him, not black earth and bugs crawling all around him. This part I was talking about with the school changing around him.
Yeah.
Richard is calling for his dad. Something green with tentacles grabs his arms. Oh, wait. Okay, so during this, there's the scene where Richard kind of like blacks out and he kind of goes back to this, he daydreams slash blacks out where he goes back to this like scene when he was young. And it's a referral to the scene when we were with Jack and he was with the, like playing with the taxi and he was like with his dad and Morgan. Okay, so we have the same kind of scene, but it's different. This time, Richard sees his dad goes into his closet. He tries to follow his dad into the closet. After when he goes into the closet starts changing around him. At first, it's a regular closet, and then it starts doing the same thing that the college did, but more in a more gruesome form. Like there are like bugs below his feet and that kind of stuff. Um, as Richard is calling out for his dad, something within the darkness that's in front of him, like grabs out at him. And it's green with tentacles. It grabs his arm. He manages to free himself and make it out of the closet. After this banned fantasy, supposedly he had forgot about this because he banned fantasy within his mind. So he
Yeah,
kind
he
of like
just wrote it
blocked.
off. as a bad dream or whatever.
He like blocked it out or whatever. So um, and Jack, hoping this would snap Richard back to reality, um, does the opposite. They wait until daytime and sleep and during the midday. Richard finds out he wasn't dreaming and breaks his glasses, refusing to see. He is also refusing to discuss plans on what they should do next. Richard goes back to sleep, wakes up, and sees mold on the walls now, just like in his dream. Now the school is changing.
Yeah.
Jack explains they need to go during the middle of the night. Bugs start coming out of the fungus. With this, they move out. Jack spies a way out towards an old train office known as the depot. As they make a run to the depot, they are chased by werewolves and the eldritch creatures and a whole bunch of other stuff. As they cross the depot doors, Jack and Richard flip back over to the territories. Um, this scene, it's. I want to say this is mainly Peter that did this like whole college scene. It feels like kind of like a Straub thing because it doesn't even the way the conversation's phrased, even the way like it's set up in these segments. It's like we're with the kids at first, and then we go to the Cinelude, and then we go back to the kids, and it's like there's no point or rhyme to these two sections, so we don't even know what the goal of these kids are until like the second part of the section, and finally it's like, oh, we see this depot, let's go over there. To me, this doesn't really feel King at all. Like, I want to say some of the setup, is a huge fan of Cthulhu Master. I'm drawing a blank, but the other author, but he doesn't really like incorporate that stuff too much into his tales. He likes some of his ideas, but as far as like just outright bringing Cthulhu type stuff into his world, not so much. I don't know. What do you say about this?
Hi, Kenneth.
What's up, Kenneth?
Yeah, it's absolutely a Straub because yeah, you're like you said, it's a, I don't know the way he writes it. It's like he's not getting to the damn point. He's too busy describing the frickin' universe instead of getting to the point, and it's like he gets lost in his own damn writing.
There we go. So they changed the way they did the comments. Okay.
Stream get a $10 discount.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. It's just this thing in front of
Yeah,
me.
but I like the scene
I
that they're
agree.
leading up to. I love the whole train thing.
I do love the train thing, and that's to me that's where it feels kingy because once we get to the next chapter, this chapter right here feels straight out of the Gunslinger, like or straight out of the Dark Tower, or you know what I'm saying?
100%.
And it's weird because this part right here with these four things that are after the boys, and then we got werewolves. I mean, because eventually some of them change into werewolves and start coming after them. Because one of them is like one. We find out one of them is the son of Sonny Gardner. It's like his next door neighbor, and that's why
Yeah.
he's there with Richard because he's, you know, his dad is keeping tabs on his son using the other guy's son. His son also becomes a bigger player, which we're going to get to in the end. But
Didn't it bother you though that the whole time they're describing the college there, why didn't these things just come into the frickin' dorm and grab them? What
you
the
know,
hell?
I
What the
had
hell
to
kept
look
them
up
out? There
this.
was no description on that.
I had to look up the school at this time to make sure that it wasn't some kind of like boys' school or something, because sometimes boys' schools can have barricades, like wall. You know, no, this is I mean, it's a public school. Like it wouldn't have locks on the doors to the dorms, like stuff like that. So I mean, I was thinking the same thing because I mean, we start this out and they start in one room, go upstairs. Eventually, they're egged on by the windows. After that, they make it outside. They go back inside. Like, why didn't the things follow them inside? I
Exactly.
feel okay. Okay, so the only thing I could come up with this, and this is my understanding, is this is more of the telephone game that Morgan has been playing because, like, back at the bar, he kept using that telephone and he kept doing the same thing. Go home, Jackie, go home. And I'm like, I mean, even if Jack goes home, the only thing that doesn't happen is he doesn't get the talisman. But that doesn't really, like, fix a whole lot of stuff because all that means is Speedy Parker's going to get a hold of the boy again and be like, bro, you need to go get the talisman, and the
Yeah.
adventure starts again. So I mean, like, it's just really bad guy ideology. Like, he's just not smart enough to think. And we're gonna get there later because I have some questions on the intelligence of Morgan Sloat. So this doesn't really fit into that. Oh, he's just strictly dumb. I mean, you're talking about he's a real estate guru. He's a Hollywood guru because he's like, slash the actor and, management side.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about a guy that is smart and planning and all kind of stuff, but he's making these like really weird. Man, how do I get rid of this thing?
Hey, Bud Files.
Hey, Bud Files. Sorry, they added this thing, this referral link for the. It's blocking the actual live chat.
Is it?
Yeah, for me because I'm on my phone. So, all right. Well, I do have one question based on this, and it's kind of a story-driven question, and it was one of the biggest things that it just kind of strikes me as weird. But in this chapter, and multiple times during this chapter, and it's going to be an ongoing theme as we go forward with this character, and specifically Richard Slow. Why does Richard go straight to denial? Now we get this whole dream sequence that's supposed to explain this, and I get that he blocked that dream out, but he's going through this currently. He's not thinking about a dream that he had when he was a kid,
Yeah.
I could understand if you were thinking about something that happened to you as a kid, like, oh, I might have had this ghost thing happen. I might have ran into this monster. That could be displayed as like kid fantasy or imagination or, no, we're talking about something he's physically going through that is affecting the school around him, affecting the people he knows. Like, I mean, it gets to a certain point, and I mentioned this, that he even breaks his glasses because he's refusing to see the reality around him. And I get the whole fight or flight thing. Is this a lock that Morgan put onto this boy?
Yeah.
Like
That's exactly.
anytime that he comes across anything that seems magical or territory associated,
Oh,
he's, and it makes me think, like, has Morgan been beating this kid? Like, I mean, you talk about there's only a couple ways you can put blocks on the brain in this fashion. And
no, I don't think so. I think the kid is just, he's that uptight. He's that driven. Like his dad has put so much of this pressure on him to succeed and be this genius like he is.
we
And
do know that he
kid
spent
is
some time
stuck in
with
that. Yeah.
Osmond and
Yeah.
Osmond, and Sonny, and he doesn't like the bad little kids kind of thing. And we already know that what do you call it? That Sonny has a thing for bad boys and stuff like that. He has this whole like kind of doctrination program, where he like brings in kids and then gets them to do, using religion, gets them to be good kids in his form or fashion. I wonder if that is part of what we're seeing with Richard.
Well, it's his personality traits too. The kid is driven. He's got the OCD, and he doesn't want anything to mess up his perfectly structured world. And if things start going outside of it that he can't explain, he shuts down. I mean, this is, I understand this kid because it's very similar to the way my personality was back in the day. When I was a kid, I was very much like Richard. Everything had to be very structured. And if you went, it's almost like autism thing, right? When you start going outside of that realm, you freak out. Your brain shuts down and says, no, 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 this is not normal. This is not correct. This is not the way things are supposed to go. Why did you move my shit? Why did you touch my stuff? Why did you do this? And your brain shuts down. This is his personality. Now, whether it was created because of his father and the way his dad was, but I mean, this some kids end up like this. It's like being on the autism spectrum.
Mhm.
So I get where he's coming from. I understand why he's shutting down.
I can get that too. And I know that it's not just a you or this kid thing that's out there. I've met kids that are just like that. I had the opposite effect as a kid where I was looking for the magical, embracing the weird. I think as an adult I gained like OCD, and now I do have it. Not necessarily like when it deems to the that kind of, but more I've been OCD as far as like, oh, this goes in a place that but I want to say this a part of maturity maybe.
Yeah,
Um,
it's horrible back then because I felt like I was in a prison. I was trapped. So the
I can
cool
get
kids
that.
like you, I tried to figure out the science behind why you guys were the way you were. And my wife actually finally told me exactly what it was, is she didn't give a shit. And I said, okay,
Yeah,
I'm incapable of doing that. I
that's
didn't
kind of
know
it.
the science behind how do I get to the point where I don't give a shit. I couldn't do it.
Hmm. Like, how do you change your mentality? And so
Yeah,
that's,
yeah.
how do you change the fabric of who you are and not the
How do you reach fuck it?
physical? Yeah, yeah.
How do
It's
you
great.
reach fuck it?
Some people just can't, I mean, it may be a skill, something you have to unlock. I don't know. All right, let's move along. Chapter 34, Anders, part 4. So Richard is freaking out. Jack spends some time trying to explain that they are safe from the werewolves now in the territories at the depot. Getting closer. Well, okay, so that's another thing right there. Like, they couldn't go into the dorm. Are you trying to tell me the werewolves can't teleport back to can't flip back to the territories just like you can? They have that ability naturally. They don't even need Morgan there. Like, I, okay.
There's too
Moving
many
along.
plot holes in there because why did they bring the territories over to the school? It was like the school was brought to the territories, or
I
was
mean,
it
and
a third dimension? I don't
that's the
know.
whole thing with like Elroy. Remember, Elroy was in the tunnels, and then, I mean, you trying to tell me that Morgan was there, and for some reason, just like, I mean, to teleport him in, to flip him
Yep.
in, and then he just didn't want to see Jack at the bar, so he just left Elroy there. And then when Elroy needed to flip back, he came back and got no. They can
Yeah.
flip. Like,
Plot holes.
okay,
Massive
yes,
plot holes.
these werewolves. Maybe they're just okay because I will admit that Wolf and maybe his brother is not on the highest of level of intelligence, you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
maybe there is a possibility that these are just lower intelligent wolves and they just maybe can forget sometimes in the heat of passion that they can flip too. And that's why Jack is like, yeah, they can't flip. And how all of a sudden is Jack just an expert on what can and can't flip from the territory? I mean, half the book he thought he's been causing earthquakes, when he flips.
Yeah. He
Okay,
thinks
okay,
he
move
was
along.
causing deaths and destruction, but it wasn't.
Okay, so they're getting closer. Jack does see train tracks. Jack spends more time trying to convince Richard, but sees somebody in the depot watching them. They walk into the depot, and a man is freaking out, asking Morgan for more time, and he'd leave in the morning. They meet Anders. At 70, he is a little high strung. Jack produces the coin the captain gave him. Anders realizes he is Jason. Anders starts growling at Jack's feet, kissing his feet. Jack is unnerved and gets him to stop. Jack learns about Morgan's train, tells Anders he needs to go into the blasted lands. Anders gives warnings, and not just gives warnings. I mean, this dude lays it down like, "No, no, no, you don't need it." I mean, he kind of like briefly freaks out.
Yeah.
All right, so let's see where I left my finger. Gives warning giant fireballs, monsters, and other things. Jack notices signs of radiations in the blasted lands within his warnings. There's a mention of like a rolling fireball. There's a mention of like people getting sick when they're around these creatures that are out there, and the sicknesses all point to like radiation sickness, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, and then the name of the land is Blasted Land. So, Jack starts, kind of putting the pieces together that some kind of nuclear testing has gone out in the Blasted Lands, kind of thing, or
Or some
fallout
kind
of
of
some
war,
kind. Yeah, something like that.
just like
Um,
with the yeah, the
he
gunslinger.
kind of he kind of puts it in that Morgan has been testing with technology in this part of the land since it was a desert, and it kind of makes sense because nothing's out there, kind of thing.
Right.
He already knows at this point that that was Morgan's goal, was to bring like to mix technology with magic. So I'm pretty sure he would have had to have tested at some point. That's where Jack's heading to. Anders to head to the Blasted Land and to meet Morgan at the Black Hotel. That's what Anders is supposed to be doing in the morning, and he's already late. Um, learns once the Queen got sick, Morgan got half of the werewolves and other monsters as well. Learn the town is called Ellen Breaks. We learn about Morgan Ariz past. Family was a joke until Morgan became a man. Also learn about Osmond and his son. His son is ugly and deformed. Um, and it is explained that he naturally has the ability, which is called dim. Dim is when someone, I myself believe I have this trait to some degree. It's kind of like when you're invisible, but not invisible. you can be in a room and not be noticed, and you're still in the room, but for some reason no one notices. You kind of like fall
The
in the shadows
unattention
and stuff.
spell. The unattention spell.
But he naturally has this
Yeah,
ability.
that
Okay,
these people
so
don't notice them there.
mhm, plan to take the train. His plan was to take the train alone, and that's where that chapter leaves off. Okay, so I got one question for all this because I do love this chapter and the setup with Anders and the train and the more build up we have because in this chapter alone we learn like pretty much a lot of Morgan's plans is starting to
Yeah,
come together. Okay, so in this chapter we learn Anders hates Morgan with a passion and he's extremely scared of him and like he's nervous and worried about his present job that he's got to go deliver this train because he knows he's not only going to see Morgan, it's going to be Osmond, these werewolves, these monsters that he has. Plus, he has to make it through the blasted lands to get there,
yep.
which is a feat in itself, which we find out. So, if Anders hates Morgan this much, why stay? Why stay? He's not even known, and it's established that he's not even known as a member of Morgan's, crew or whatever. He's just stationed at the train that nobody knows about except for Morgan because he put it there. Why stay?
Yeah, I know. Why would you have a guy where it's such an important job, and you keep him? Well, he's out there in the middle of nowhere, and he has limited supplies, so I guess he doesn't have much of a choice. Because if he doesn't go, he's going to starve to death. Because we found
When
out
I
there's not a whole lot of food or anything there either. There's not much in the way
there's
of resources.
nothing. It's a
I know, it's like
desert,
the way
like
station, right? It
yeah, it
reminded
is.
me of the way station. So he's like in the
And
middle of this freaking desert. He's got this train, and he's only got one direction to go, and that is it.
and you said it like so importantly that this is like the road to the key to of importance in this land, you know what I'm saying? So like why did this when I read this reminded me so much of The Shining and the movie makes fun of it, but like that whole like not a human not having to do any having anything to do or to keep occupied. This guy, I mean, Jack looks around this little depot. There's nothing in there. There's no books. There's no radio. There's no TV. There's no marbles. There's no. Yeah, I
No,
mean, he doesn't even have rats to play with. I mean, you're
no, the
talking
place is
about like
dilapidated. Yeah,
one of the parts that makes me joke, it like made me laugh is when he's like, "Oh, we're gonna have dinner," and then he's like, "Oh yeah, but we don't have this, this, this." You know, it's like, what were you eating out here? And I have to imagine because he was late and he does say he's gonna leave in the morning. That's the whole reason he's leaving in the morning because he doesn't have any like resources.
and that's probably why he delayed and delayed. And like you said, like what's holding him there? It has to be that. That's the only thing. And Morgan must know that. He must, because otherwise he would have somebody more trustworthy. But I don't think he wants somebody necessarily trustworthy going to basically die in the blasted land. So we need somebody who's expendable and really has no choice. So again, this kind of shows you his little bit of his genius there, right? How he uses and manipulates people.
Also, his cruelty because we see the other side of this train track and how he has that set up. And he's got barracks and canteens and a
Yeah.
little bar. And no, this guy's got the crumb. And not only that, but the way the territories is he knows nobody's coming to this guy. Everybody's so scared of these myths and folklore, which you would be in these lands because everything's spread through mouth, like word of mouth. Like no one comes to this guy. So, I mean, they didn't have to worry about being found out.
But it's such a risk on Morgan's path too, because after we saw what happens as these kids drive through the blasted lands in this train, like Jesus, what the success rate of this train making it through was not very good.
No, and you
Considering
have to.
what's on it, right? I like right off the bat, I figured it was some kind of weapons. I just didn't know what kind of weapons that they were
But
carrying.
you have to. Well, when we're
Because
about to
what
get
did the
into
crate
it,
say? The crate said something
yeah,
else
yeah,
on
yeah.
them, right?
Oh, I know what the praise are. We're
Yeah,
gonna get into that because it's like kind of a big part of the fun of the story.
yeah.
Um, all right, so no, but in hindsight, think about if Andrews would have taken the train and what would have happened along the journey. He wouldn't have made it. Like the
No,
train
he
wouldn't have
wouldn't.
made it. Like and they would have robbed the train, thinking they had something of because they mentioned what they're looking for. That's not on the train. Like he would have opened that box that Richard finds, and they would have been kablooey. Like it would have been all for naught. So I want to put in some little like you know some fate or Ka, or that these boys just happen to show up to need the train. All right, so let's move along. Interlude, Slow in this World, Iris and the Territories. This is 2 and 3, technically. I mixed these in together. This is the interlude from in the college part and this part. So Sloat is visiting Lily now. She looks like she is dying. We learn he has a room right across the hall from hers now. Sloat is still trying to get Lily to sign the papers. We learn Sloat knows about the talisman but can't retrieve it. This is one of the first informations we've heard about the talisman. He can't touch the sucker.
Yeah, you
Can't
can't
even
get it.
get close to it. Um, they have a brief conversation about Morgan's coke habit, and Lily tells Sloat Jake will save him, and that's pretty much the culmination of these interludes. Which is another point of a question: why the f is Sloat still there? And we know that he's not still there. I want to take this as this happened sometime before, because he was already at the rest stop with Jake. Remember, Jake like saw Morgan. He's like, "Oh crap!" and he flips, and he ends up back in the territories. And that was like 13 chapters ago. You know what I'm saying? That was a long time. It's kind of like they just threw that interlude there for something to add into the book, but then it's like they forgot where to throw it in. Like, I don't know. But I want to chalk it up to that happened before Morgan left the hotel and started his journey,
I
because we
want
do
to chalk it
know,
up to having two authors trying to write one story.
and doing it with fax machines and the
Yeah,
early stages of email.
it's not like they.
Um,
Yeah, it's not like they could be on FaceTime here and they could talk about it.
mhm.
Technology's
No, but
come a
like,
long
I
way.
mean, technically, when I got there and I read it, I was like, "Did y'all forget that we've already ran into like Slow twice within Jack's journey?" It's not like I was like, "Okay, so I'm gonna move this interlude back to where."
And put it right here, and then have less plot holes.
All right, moving along. Chapter 35: The Blasted Lands. Richard is starting to believe this is not a dream. He is asking Jack to go home. Jack lays down the plan currently in the territories at a location called Ellis Breaks, going to ride the train till the Black Hotel, and Anders starts to grovel again. Jack stops him. Anders gives Jack a candle, said to ward off devils. Anders leads them to the train shack, and the devils turn out to be the batteries for the train. The train is, which I didn't get the candle part at all. Like, they calm the devils. Like, he goes in there and there's just batteries. So what was the candle supposed to do when he went in there? Like,
And
and
I
it did
thought that
something.
was dangerous because the gas is given off from batteries, and you put a flame near it, they actually explode.
It
They
is,
actually have to be in special rooms.
And Jack makes the same coalition statement. He's like, "Oh, this is really dangerous." He didn't even know what this is. Um, what did the candle do when he went in there? Is what I'm trying to, because it did something for him, because he said it soothed the demons or whatever. And I'm like,
Oh, it's one of those calming candles that you use when you meditate, I guess. It's like
maybe, maybe,
some kind of
maybe,
jasmine or something that
maybe
calms you
Richard
down.
gave him this. Morgan
Gave him a
gave him
sleepy
this.
time tea. Here, chill out. Here, smoke this.
All right, so said to ward off devils. Anders leads them to the train shack. The devils turn out to be the batteries. The train is designed simplistic like a golf cart, which I thought was kind of funny too. Like, why would you design a whole train and not just bring one over here? We even have those little mini like mall trains. Like, why not just grab them? Like, if you, okay, anyways,
Yeah, the
um,
controls are like a hawker. They're similar to with a dead
they're
man switch
just
on it,
yeah. Like,
and you have to keep your hand on the throttle, or otherwise
mhm.
the train just stops.
So Jack investigates the train and finds boxes labeled machine parts, to
Yeah,
which he thinks they're guns. Jack states that they're to leave tonight instead of when Morgan has planned. We leave. Morgan of Ariz had a son, Rastin, and he died. Anders states the journey is 3 days and offers them dinner. Richard still believes he is dreaming. Jack tries to pay, which we started out this chapter and he was believing, and then he goes right
yeah, he
about
was, and now he
it.
reverts. I don't know. I get it.
Jack tries to pay Anders, and Anders is actually offended by this.
Yeah,
Notices Jack is not exactly Jason and tells Jack that the coin might help. Okay, so this all goes into like Jason or Jack is supposed to be seen as this deity, the way this guy sees it is kind of like Jesus. Like you wouldn't like you would take Jesus' blessings and stuff like that, but you wouldn't take like money from him, kind of thing. And that's how this is
It's like
presented.
royalty is the same way too, right?
Yeah. So it's not really that he's like offended. He's just more like, no, 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 no. What are you trying to do? Like, I can't take anything from you, kind of thing. Um, so Richard does not want to go to California. Starts to freak, and Anders has to load Richard onto the train. They move out on the train, saying bye to Anders. Most of the blasted lands is red desert. Jack notices some light, but always too quick to view, until they hit nighttime and come across an atomic fireball that
Yeah.
lights up the desert. Jack sees the animals to be deformed dogs. Jack stays awake the whole night while Richard sleeps. Jack sees trees that look like dying people. Daylight comes, and they're slowly moving across a valley. Going up a hill in the valley, Jack spies snake men, and I put a question mark because they're not necessarily snake men, which turns out to be a huge worm. He sees many other creatures, all he deems infected by radiation. Richard finally wakes and he states that he is better, facing reality. They have a brief conversation of dangers in the Blastlands. They end up checking the crates and find Uzis and ammo. Both take them in backup clips. They degrease the guns. Then Jack sleeps till night. When Jack slept, Richard checked the other crates and finds out they're full of C4. Jack starts to think Richard will be very important. They start to notice people like things hiding along the train tracks. They start to attack the train with bows and arrows. Jack uses the Uzis against the attackers. One of the attackers pleads them to stop, which they slow down, and one of the men attack, half snake, half man, all teeth. Jack smokes the snaky. They move on. Still, they stay awake all that night. And that's where that chapter leaves off.
It was such a great battle, them shooting.
The
Good
whole
thing they found the
stopping.
guns. If they didn't find the guns, they would have just been killed themselves.
Yeah, they'd have been screwed because there was stuff in the tracks anyways that would have
Yeah.
prevented them. I mean, they would have had. All right, so I do have a question for this one and a good one. One that I've been waiting to ask since I've read the Talisman a long time ago. But so if Sloat is out here testing with radioactive material on any level, and if he is that smart to do that, why real estate and acting like management back? I mean, you're talking about like if you have the scientific like intelligence, and I could understand if the book explained that this guy's got like a team of scientists working. No, they never do that. They never like, man, this is all like Morgan Sloat and his plans. And yes, he has guard dogs that work for him, but that's about it. Like he has protection. But like, if he is that smart that he's out here like messing, even touching radiation and not getting affected by it, or like, I mean, where is the intelligence for the rest of it? Like
I don't think that he did do any nuclear testing or anything out there. I think that was done like in the Gunslinger. Like those lands were blasted long before Morgan came along. He was just using that area as cover because nobody ever goes there. So he figures it's a good location to transport his illicit goods with beneath notice.
that's
I
exactly
never,
what
I,
I'm looking
I
for.
never thought that he would ever have been doing anything. Because how the hell does an ordinary man get his hands on nuclear
No, you don't.
fusible? You
You
don't.
don't. You
You
can't.
just
And
don't. So
you're
that
exactly
was.
you're
There's no
exactly right.
way.
He used this area because he knew no one was out there. And in retrospect, this area is out there because what we did in the real world with Hiroshima, and that's why it is the
Nagasaki.
blasted lands. It's the
Yeah.
reflection of what we did in the real world. And you're exactly right. He's using this area because he knows no one goes out there because of all the folklore legends and tales.
The question I
He
have is how are the tracks still intact? How did the tracks manage to survive all this stuff? Were they put in after, and who the hell put them in? And why didn't
that
these
was my
mutants
question.
just
That's
destroy
actually
the
the
tracks?
next.
Because if they
That's
wreck the
actually
tracks,
the.
the train's going to stop. They have no, see
That's
that there's
actually
no
my
plot holes.
That's actually my next question was who got like how did he build the tracks, like who helped him build the tracks, like, and we're talking about they go for like 3 days. So I
Yeah,
mean,
and how
it's a
did none
lot
of
of
these
tracks.
fireballs destroy parts of this track? Because they're just randomly blasting through the lands. Like, what
Yeah,
are the odds?
we're talking about the fireballs would be like a mix of all kind of gases that would melt these
Oh, it would
types of
melt a
metal.
rail, burn the wood, because I'm assuming it's wood ties and metal rails, like an old-fashioned type railroad track.
Hmm.
So, like, who the hell's maintaining these things? Nobody could survive out there.
Now, my only thought is back with Wolf and him mentioning that when Morgan came into power, once the Queen got sick, he got like half the werewolves, and Anders reiterates that as well. My thinking, because we only see like a handful of werewolves, like we don't see like the massive numbers that they kind of hinted at. There's no,
Thousands,
yeah,
hundreds of
there's no.
thousands.
So I want to assume that maybe he used the werewolves and many of them died during this reflection of like China, how we used
Yeah,
workers to do our railroad
build
and
his
stuff like
railroad.
that. Mhm. That was my only thinking, is because but we don't see a lot of the territory, so who knows.
Yeah, we don't know. There's a lot of holes that are missing in
Mhm.
there.
All
So
right.
we assume that the tracks are perfectly intact, and they spend 3 days driving this train, getting attacked by
I
weird
mean,
mutants.
maybe the fireballs just don't affect the tracks, and maybe the lizard guys don't, and maybe the worms just go under them. There's a whole lot of stuff that would mess
There's a
up these
lot of
tracks.
Ka working hard on this massively.
Some dark cog. This is the bad guy we're talking about, not the good guy.
Exactly. So, well, dark Ka, light Ka,
I mean,
it's Ka is
okay,
Ka. Ka
so
doesn't care.
spoiler warning. We do know that some of these people are working with and for the Crimson King. So maybe there is some
Yeah.
layers of protection. Maybe that's it. Maybe the Crimson King built all this and he's just using it.
Yeah.
Um, I got imagination. I can use it. All right.
Yeah. That fits. That
Chapter,
makes my brain feel better. Nice. Yeah, we're good.
and we do find a lot of that in Black House. I mean, I'm just
Yes. Yes.
using that for this. Okay,
Because he's got that slave labor force that he's been using.
he does. So, chapter 36, Jack and Richard go to war. While Jack is driving, Richard finds a crate that was hidden before. Sh- um, Showing it to Jack reveals it to be a crate full of grenades.
Yeah,
Jack
pineapple.
fills yeah, pineapples. Jack fills the caboose with 4 Uzi bullets and grenades. Richard asking if Jack is expecting war. Jack answers maybe. Richard sleeps. Jack thinks over his plan. I'd like to mention that only a day at this point has gone by, and I did count this. This is the eighth time Richard has gone to sleep, if you were wondering. All right.
Yeah. Richard's got a lot of rest.
Yes.
Poor Jack has been freaking awake all this time.
And his back is gonna hurt. All
Yeah.
right. So
But he's young.
Jack thinks over his plan. 10 to 13 hours early. Maybe um, a lick of the werewolves waiting, and maybe he doesn't know how many werewolves. He's just kind of guessing. But he's hoping that he catches them kind of unprepared because they are coming a good 10 to 13 hours early. Which I have no idea. I mean, the train does have one speed, but I mean, he's still taking a major guess.
But
Okay,
it's
so
expected too. The train is expected, so they're not going to think anything's wrong.
and
So
we
that's
do find
another
out
thing
this
in their
this
favor.
does work. This does work out for them. They do catch them off guard.
Oh, massively.
Um,
I love this part too.
yeah. So Richard and Jack arm themselves to the teeth. Jack sleeps till dawn. Smelling the sea now, they are pulling up to a lone house, but can hear someone yelling, "The train has come!" It's a werewolf in worker clothes. Come to the front of the train, asking about Anders, and Jack shoots him through the eye. Now the train is coming to the wall and can hear many voices. Jack rams the gate, knocking it over and killing a wolf in the process. Around them looks like a military stockade. Jack stops the train in front of a barrack. Men, wolves, lizard people come out bewildered. Jack mows down most of the soldiers. Richard and Jack mow down and blow up most, including an alligator girl. Um, Osmond appears with Elroy and Osmond's son. Elroy comes first and unloads an Uzi clip. Jack unloads an Uzi clip in his face.
Hmm.
Rule comes, which is Osmond's son, next, and Jack shoots, but Rule continues. He's not really phased with the bullets. Um, he gets closer, and Jack shoots away half of his face, and he's still coming. Jack feels heat coming from his pocket, which turns out to be the coin. It is now kind of like on fire or whatever, like a magical, which he shoves in Rule's forehead, demanding he leave this world. Rule now dead. Osmond freaks out, but thinks of Wolf. Um, Osmond calls Morgan, and Morgan rips in, but Jack grabs Richard and flips back to um, America
Our world.
or our world.
Yeah.
All right, so I definitely have a question for this, but definitely a scene out of the past with Uzis and C4 and grenades. How would you modernize this scene? Would you just give them straight up like regular guns? You couldn't really do that because they're little kids. How would you modernize this?
Oh, in this day and age, well, the kids
I
have
mean,
swept the way the kids play video games now. You can pretty much have any weapons, MP4, MP4s or MP5s or whatever,
it is true. That is true.
and it would still be
Wow,
grenades. Grenades are grenades. I mean, that's a time simple weapon. Pull the pin, let the thing flip, and off you go. And
grenades are,
again,
but I can say Uzis. I don't know if you'd say that to like,
maybe an
you
Ingram
know,
Mach 10, little good old fashioned
no,
Ingrams. Those are great.
there you go. Just
Yeah,
call them Ingrams. Hey, there's some Ingrams in this box. You know what I'm saying?
people would know what that is.
Yeah, but even the whole setup. I mean, we got this like go kart like style train, kind of like just barely mowing down. I mean, it did ram this fence, but it kind of like takes the fence with it. It doesn't really mow it down. It kind of like just pushes it down. It kind of takes it with it, and it
I
just
should have
it,
derailed the train immediately. So that's another big
yeah.
hole in the plot too, because this
There
train's
was
not that heavy. The
there
batteries
was
will
the
weigh it down, but
well, there
yeah,
was the car. Remember, then I explained that
yeah,
in this chapter that somebody forgot to do the hinges or whatever, and that's how the gate was able to come
all the
off
way
and
it did. Yeah, without derailing the train, because it would have derailed their plans because they would have been well away from the stockade when they stopped, and they would have had to shoot from a distance.
yeah, because it's like it had like a depot security house, and then it was like a good little portion to the gate, and then from the gate it was still a good portion to like the
Yeah, like
barracks.
an
And
actual military setup, right?
mhm.
So you want to have a killing ground.
Yeah, and if they would have got stuck in the front, it would have. All right, so chapter, but I do love that scene. It went
Oh
down like
yeah,
wonderfully, like with Jack on the blaze, like the alligator girl thing, like he even rolled, like the way he kept coming, like I didn't think he was gonna go down, kind of thing. I mean, Jack literally shoots off like half his face, and he's still coming.
yep.
He's like,
I
yeah,
knew it needed magic to kill that bastard.
right. All right, so chapter 37, Richard remembers finally. They flip.
Again.
They flip back to America in a location that looks like the King Barracks. They do learn they're in North California. They find the same train and guns. Jack decides to destroy it. Basically, flip with them. It's not. They find that the train came with them, um, and does. Well, hold on. They find the same train, and Jack decides to destroy the train and does so, exploding all the C4. Which I didn't really get that. Like, why the need to explode it? I mean, like I get that he hadn't come up with the end game thing, like maybe Morgan's death. I don't know, um, but he blows up the train. They leave the camp following the train tracks. They make it 2 miles, and Richard is overcome with the sickness. Um, and this isn't really explained, but I gather it's just radiation sickness from their
Yep.
trek through the vast blasted land. We know, and it's not really discussed, but Jack actually has a power. I mean, he has a regenerative power. I mean, you're talking about during this book, he's been like stabbed, he's been like whipped, and he doesn't have any of those. like
He was tortured
illnesses
at
or
that school badly.
yeah,
Yeah, right.
yeah.
He should be in pretty piss poor condition at this point.
He got like cuts to his fingers. I mean, you're
They're
talking
ripping
about like
fingernails off, and yeah,
no. But that goes into the whole what Jack really is. I mean, he is kind of like a messiah type figure, and he just doesn't know this. We, the readers, we get
Jesus
to
self healing.
yeah,
Juju.
yeah. We get to experience this as we go through. So it's a little different going through and seeing Richard get sick because Jack is not getting sick. You know, I mean, he's just, I'm fine. I mean, which is weird because Jack does get sick during our trail, and Wolf ends up healing him with some simple dirt, basically. Um,
Yeah.
all right, so Jack makes a makeshift backpack and carries Richard. Richard starts to remember Elroy and Sonny. Um, Jack asks where the tracks lead and to Point Venuti and has a black hotel. Richard tells a story about Osmond and Sonny coming to see Morgan at their home. Never seen Rule before, but thinks about the tentacle in the closet because Rule, one of his arms was a tentacle. It wasn't exactly an arm. Um, Jack, which it's not Rule because Rule was not green in his dream. The thing was like bright green, like so green he could see it in the dark. But he did have a tentacle. Um, Jack starts to think about his father's, Phil's death. Richard admits Osmond came a bunch the week his father died. Jack berates Richard for having known most of um, this, but pretends Jack was crazy. Um, like he kind of gets mad at Richard's character because all along he's been like, "Oh, you're crazy, Jack. You're demented.
Hmm.
You're not daydreaming and going anywhere, you know." And all along he did know all this, you know, and he's just been like mentally blocking it off, kind of. Richard admits he blocked it out and on purpose for fear of seeing his father as the villain, because he started to realizing his father was doing either bad things or couldn't really explain the thing, you know. Um, but he knows better now. Feeling the talisman closer, he tries getting Richard to feel better. Richard reveals more as they walk on and had been to the camp before. Camp readiness. Richard was told not to tell Jack about the camp. Tells tells him that he rode a trolley into Point Venuti. He remembers more about camp readiness. Not really soldiers and maybe werewolves, but not. He can't really remember. They came across a sign that warns them to turn back. They press on. They make it to the Kingland Motel down the street from the Black Hotel, the Agincourt Hotel, made with a black stone, and Richard believes Morgan owned it. Morgan explained something old was inside the Black Hotel, and only Jack can touch it. The axle of all worlds, also known as Phil Sawyer's Folly, also known as the Talisman. Jack believes Morgan cannot enter the Black Hotel. He also believes only single natured people can enter the hotel, meaning if you have a twin, you cannot enter. Which he's not exactly right, but you know, look at Jack moves out, heading towards the hotel, sees a billboard with his mom on it, and sees it as a warning to the Queen's health. They move on. My question from this chapter, as we learn something super new and important: why Phil Sawyer's Folly? Why is this thing called Phil Sawyer's Folly?
Yeah, that is a good question, isn't it?
On
So
top
you
of that,
have
what does that represent to the story? Because a folly is like
you made a
usually a joke.
mistake. Oh,
Well, it's usually like a jokingly escapade, but
oh, you're thinking
jokingly
of folly
mistake,
that way. I
or
was thinking of it as an error, a
well,
massive
it could be
error.
a folly like that way,
Yeah.
like it could be an error. But what would his error been? Would have been trusting Morgan? Would have been going to the territories? Would have been, you know, I mean, why is this thing called like Phil's, you know, problem or Phil, you know, like Phil's regret? And then, I mean, the whole book is about this his wife getting sick and this boy having to take this journey to save his mom, and it happens to be this thing, Phil's Folly. How
I'm
does
betting that
Phil's
I'm betting that Phil could have had hold of the talisman at some point in time. Like he could have had the opportunity to either have the like buy the black hotel or have been there and that would have had his hands on it. But something happened, like you said, something made him make the error, and he did not do it.
Well, there's some
Maybe
ifs
he
and
didn't even
outs
think it was
about
an
that.
error at the time. I don't know.
There's
Yeah,
some ifs and outs about that because we do know, because he's right about that part, that the single nature, and we do know that Phil had this twinner, but they died not together, but close together. So maybe there was a time that Phil came before then, and that's when the talisman was made. Because I don't believe that this was here at the beginning of Sloat and Morgan's journey into the territories, because I believe that we would have gotten that into their previous conversations when Jack was thinking about, like, behind the couch. They would have mentioned something like that. Well, what
yeah,
about
that's true.
the object, or what about the hotel, or how do we keep it safe? I believe this is something that Morgan found along the way, kind of thing. And it makes sense that this thing appeared after Phil died, kind of thing. That's why it's titled Phil's Folly. That's why, like, I can't wrap my brain around, because he was killed. He was tragically killed by,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
ultimately by Morgan, his best
yeah,
friend, like the godfather to his son.
yeah.
Like, I mean, they were basically family connected. So that's his folly, is trusting his friend.
Yeah, I
How
think you're
how
right.
does
It's the whole trust thing. You shouldn't have trusted him in the first place. But
how,
you know
how
what? I
does
think he knew that he was a bad man, but I don't know. He just, yeah, he had that trusting nature, unfortunately.
Okay, so maybe that's it. Maybe okay, so we have this relationship with Jack and his son Richard, right? And
Yeah,
maybe that's how it fixes it, because we do know coming up that Richard gets into the house and he's not supposed to be able to. It's supposed to kill him outright because, okay, so maybe that's how he's able to use Phil's folly, the talisman, because he has fixed the connection that they were supposed to have. Jack and Richard trust each other,
right, right. Yeah,
where
yeah. Yeah,
and
it's
I
kind of
want to
an
say,
origin thing. So, yeah, the kids end up with the relationship that the parents should have had, but didn't due to both their personalities were,
and
you
you
know,
think about it, going back to all this, that we just talked about with Richard going to sleep and him
yeah,
negating reality. Like, I mean, you talk about the challenge. It was just to get Richard on a talking basis to even discuss what was really going on, kind of
yeah.
thing.
And Jack
So
still had patience with them too. That's the thing, right? Like some relationships, you'd just be fed up with them and say, you know what, the hell with you. But
I want to say that we just found a key that no one has ever found before. That's the only reason that the talisman worked for Jack. And it has nothing to do with Jack. It does. Jack's important, blah, blah, blah. But the only reason that the talisman worked for Jack was because they made this connection along the journey.
yeah,
You know,
I
and
believe that.
and
That makes perfect sense now. Yeah,
it also reflects back to Wolf and Jack's connection, because they should have made it to the end. And due to Jack's decisions, we lost Wolf,
yeah, right now that would be Jack's folly.
Yeah, it's crazy. That is crazy.
But I was pretty sure that Richard was gonna not gonna make it. Like how sick
I
and bad he was
myself,
getting.
I
I was
myself,
like,
I can remember
shit, man, he's gonna die. And I thought, oh crap, this is the end of Richard now.
the way the book emphasizes it. I want to say that might have been an earlier thing that they had going, because even in this chapter alone, he mentions that twice in the past two chapters, that he thinks Richard will be important, kind of thing, but he doesn't know what. Um, the reader, read that as like we were about to lose Richard, like he was important to the like a sacrificial kind of thing.
Yeah,
Um, excuse me, not necessarily that Jack was going to sacrifice Richard, but maybe he was going to die along the quest, kind of thing. I mean, that has happened already a bunch. I
yeah,
mean, we're talking about, at this point, we lost some
yeah,
characters. Um,
yeah. And we
moving
still had
along,
Morgan and all his men to deal with, which is coming up.
but I want to say that might be the key, and I've never even thought about it until I came across this doing the breakdown, that it had the different names, that it was the axis of all worlds, and that's easily explained. I mean, it is what it is, kind of thing. This is the the entrance to all of the, Stephen King. Okay, but then it's like, Sawyer's Folly, and I was like, why is it named that? I was like,
Yeah,
who would even name it that? Like,
yeah.
why would that be a thing in the territories? Like, that they would call it this. And I have to imagine that it leads me into thinking that Morgan did not find this thing. This was found by good intentioned people after Phil's death, because this thing uh, came into existence after Phil's death, kind of thing. If he's Jesus, right, then what is his dad, kind of thing? And his
Yeah.
dad would be like, you know, um,
He's God.
God. Yeah, so he would be the axis on. Okay, so I think we just had a revelation, and nobody's watching. We got like,
We did.
2 people watching. All right, so chapter 38, the end of the road. Richard appears more sick now than before, showing signs of multiple illnesses. Jack tries to remember the old Richard, but he has changed. He has a pretty strong back. um, he has a pretty strong back rash currently. As they continue, their rash turns to welts. They also come across territory trees that they're getting closer to them, kind of thing. Richard steadily gets worse. They continue, and along the path, they find a skeleton of a little boy. They can see Point Venuti. That's where that ends. Um, don't really have a question there, but there are some kind of creepy things coming up,
Yeah.
and we've already kind of touched base with it in the beginning with Jack earlier, but it gets extra creepy here. Okay, so I love this chapter. In chapter 39, Point Venuti, small town next to an ocean, appears deserted. We first see cars with a wolf driving into the ocean. He can see the roof of the Black Hotel, and it has a wolf weatherman on top. Jack determined, but Richard is super sick but hopeful. They run into more of the man-eating trees, and one even tries to uproot itself and does, and kind of dies instantly. They press on, and the town has fire damage and rot from the trees. They do run into a mad woman making it closer to the hotel. Jack spies limos with drivers hidden and idling, waiting for them. They see the hotel, and Richard states it was smaller before and believed it has grown in size. They make a mad dash to the hotel, past a whole slew of the earth eater or the man eater trees. Richard almost gets eaten, but saved by Jack. They make it to the parking lot and walk forward. The talisman calls to Jack. The mad woman dashes towards a store and disappears. Now noticing the town watching them, there's many people, not just the mad woman. Hidden next to the parking lot is a row of limos, and they detour again using the seaside connection to the hotel. Jack sees Sonny with the bullhorn. They make a beeline to the beach. And seaside connection, I meant like they basically kind of made a beeline to the beach and used the ocean to get, they kind of use the seaside connection. um, okay, I do have a question on this town because I had to go over this chapter like 4 times. The makeup of this town is so bizarre, so weird. Point Venuti is a real place in California. It does not look like this. There's real people that live there today, kind of thing. All right, so what is with this town? Do you think it's fear? Do you think it's like love? Do you think it is um, and my description of this town is it reminds me a lot of a Silent Hill type town. This is a town that appears to be deserted. It's got like rot. There's fire damage. There's like riot. It looks like riots have taken place. There's nobody on
Yep.
the streets. The people that you find are crazy. And then the other ones that you find are like hidden and just watching you. They never really do anything. Or what's with this town and with these people? What would you say explains? Wait, is
The
it the
first time I
talisman?
the first time I read this, it reminded me of Castle Discordia. So this is
Mm,
Crimson King all over it. So what they've done is since there's something beautiful in the center of this thing, you surround it with evil and corruption. So they have bought this town. Morgan has bought everything in this town, and he's just let it go to rot and destruction and evil to surround the talisman to weaken it or to destroy it outright and put all these guards in places. It reminds me of also Jake when he went into the house guardian that was guarding the door. I'm thinking like the hotel is this whole huge guardian.
I will
That's
say you're
the way I read it.
I will say you're 100% right. Um, and this is kind of like the opposite reflection of what we should have saw if this were to happen like earlier on with the rose and all that, because we saw it later on after kind of like the good guys got a hold of it. But like you think about it, this is exactly what any villain would do, especially if they couldn't get a hold of it. They'd mound up around it until they
Yeah.
could get to it, kind of thing.
So yeah, if the evil did get hold of the rose, that's exactly what they would do. They'd have corruption all around that rose. They know they couldn't destroy it, but they just weaken it.
On the flip side, the people I explained to, like, there were living there, and the talisman appeared. And it probably in a blast of magical, like, effort or whatever. But like the people that stayed, I can only imagine like one or two things. They're either drawn by the talisman, or maybe they're so scared of Morgan or whatever that they're there out of fear, because it's just a strange situation with these people, especially the first woman he meets. I mean, they're like half insane, like,
Well, that's what I think
not.
is left is just the crazies. It drove them insane, and they don't go anywhere because it draws in evil and craziness around it. So I mean, that's what they want. So all the good people and the sane people just left. Or like I said, maybe what happened was Morgan bought out the town bit by bit and just drove everybody out, and all that was left were the homeless and crazy, and they just
we
basically took over.
we are told that we do know that he bought, like, all the majority, I mean, realtor and his connection and stuff.
Yeah, and he just let
You
it
know,
go dilapidated. Like look at the hotel that the kids were in; it was all dilapidated and messed up. There was
yeah,
nobody running it.
yeah. The Ombre, it's got the one like desk clerk that runs the whole hotel. Okay, it is in the off season. We don't know what it looked like in the on
That's
season.
true. That's
All
true.
right, but still,
Yeah, so that's what I'm thinking anyway.
okay. Moving along. Chapter 40, Speedy on the beach.
Yep.
And I got a good question for this one. Because there's like let's call it a red herring that kind of sticks out in this chapter. All right, almost to the beach, he sees Sonny sending men up the hill away from them. All the men carrying guns now at the beach. They are beckoned to some rocks near the water, and they find Speeder Parker. Okay, so this is like a twofold thing. There's like Sonny, and he's like waving around like a madman because he's got orders from Morgan. He's basically at a bullhorn. He's like issuing these guys this way and that way because he doesn't really
Yep.
know where Jack's coming. He knows they're coming soon, but he has no idea. So he's just like, ah, I think he's over this way. And like, so the werewolves are kind of like, yeah, and there's some that are still sitting in their limos and cars. Okay, and then we got Speedy on the beach, and they're already moving on the beach, but Speedy's all over here like, hi, hi, like loud
The
as
big
hell. Like,
distraction. Yeah.
okay, so that's what's going on. So Richard is very sick. Jack has to carry him to Speedy. Meanwhile, Sonny is pacing back and forth in front of the hotel, kind of like I mentioned with the bullhorn. Jack and Richard make it to Speedy, and Speedy looks worse than Richard. Asks to listen. Says Morgan did this to them, both Richard and Speedy. Speedy preaches the importance of saving the Queen. He gives Jack an inflatable horse to travel to the back of the hotel. There's like a pier and there's like a window that goes into a dining room. It's like the easiest access way into the hotel instead of going in front where all the bad guys. The inflatable horse is titled Silver Lady, like we met in the very beginning of the book of the Carousel. Um, both both most both of them must go inside, Richard and Jack. He's told by Speedy, because Jack was originally going to leave Richard outside and head inside. And at this point, it's been heavily hinted that only Jack can go inside, so that's kind of something new. Um, once on the water, they need to find a window that leads to the dining room. He is spotted before getting into the water, but they make it into the raft. Paddling towards the back, Jack jumps out of the floaty and starts to push it to go faster, and finds massive territory monsters in the water. The massive creatures actually help Jack and the raft, and they move him up to the pier, kind of right in front of where the window is, and actually protects them from the guys that actually start shooting at them. All of a sudden, they start shooting, and the monsters just start like kind of deflecting all the bullets and stuff. It's pretty magical. Um, and they actually protect him at one point from a sniper shot from Sonny, because
Yeah.
Sonny actually has a hunting rifle with a magnified scope on it, and he goes to shoot Jack, sees Jack, and one of these creatures actually like protects Jack right before he gets shot. Trying to find a ladder up the deck, they find sea slugs covering the pylons. They find the ladder finally because they're kind of like trying to find the ladder among these pylons that they're all covered with these slugs from because this is like a mix of territories and our stuff. Technically, we don't even know if this is territory stuff. This could be from another
Something
world.
completely else. Yeah.
Could be mid-world. We don't know. Um, um, Let's see. Sea slugs, pylons, they find a ladder. Jack has to help Richard up the ladder, and they make it up to a trapdoor on the deck, and now they are on the deck. This is where this chapter leaves off, and I have a question for you, a big one. And this has been used in reverse and retrospect, but I'll go with my question first, and I'll get to the reverse retrospect in a second. So, why a floaty horse from Speedy Parker and not a raft, not a boat? Like, do we need, does he believe Jax need this reflection of the carousel when he met? Do you think like Speedy must be like, man, I hope Jack really remembers me. Maybe he'll, remember that horse that was back at the carousel. Like why this inflating? I mean, I get Jack's a kid, and maybe that's a part of it too. But why this inflating boat? Why not a boat? Why not a raft? Why not? Uh,
Yeah,
we
I know
know
that. That is so
we
weird. I know when he did that.
we
I'm going, is that all he found?
we know Speedy's been there, and we know Speedy knows these guys are going to be shooting at him. We also know that Speedy knows that the creatures are in the water. It gives Jack a lot of these hints before he even gets into the raft.
Yeah,
Okay, so why give him this like? And it's not even like a full raft. It's like,
it's a horse that is inflated. I was thinking
yeah,
it's
it's
like
an
a
inflatable
kid's,
horse.
and then kids. Yeah, but it would
That's
just be.
exactly
It
what
would
it
look
is.
like
It's
a
one of
raft
those where it's
with a
like a horse,
horse,
and you sit on
and
top
it's a
of it as
ring.
it
Yeah,
floats.
yeah, yeah. Because I was
Like,
trying to
well,
picture it in my head because I had some, like as a kid, we had pools in every house that I lived in, and we
I
had these
read this.
inflatable toys that would go in our pools. And I remember having this one. It was like a submarine thing, so it was a ring that would go around your waist, and it had a
Mhm.
post with a little thing that you could the whatever that
Ah,
thing that came
this
up out of
isn't
the
even like this. This is like
no, this is something larger.
this is like a, yeah, it's a big it's just a big inflatable horse that literally floats on its like hooves as it. That's why he eventually gets off and he starts pushing it because it has nothing to propel it forward. Like it's just this, like
Yeah, there's no paddles or nothing. It was the weirdest thing.
uh,
I'm like, why the hell a horse?
I'm sitting there thinking, like, I mean, Speedy's been here for a minute, and there has to, I mean, he had to have come across other towns, and I mean, if he knew all this, he was working before. He's got money, like, I mean, rafts aren't that expensive. Like, I mean, he could have went like kiddie
Any
raft, and that would have.
sporting, yeah, any sporting stores or pool places or whatever,
So
and
then I
got a
go
simple
to,
raft.
so then I'm breaking down the chapter, right, and I'm thinking about the writer thing. So we go into this thing where like Jack and Richard have to make it across this water. Like, I love the explanation. They need to, go this like weird angle to get back to
Yeah,
the back of the hotel to avoid all the werewolves. Okay, that I love that. That makes sense. Like for the readers, like it avoids the gun battle, avoids the werewolf. Great. But then we get like this inflatable floaty. But then right after that, they're like, we get this Cthulhu type eldritch like horror scene with these creatures, and I thought it was gonna go mega bad, like it was another
yeah,
like
me too.
guardian. and it turns out that they're super good. They're working with the queen or something, you know.
Yeah, they're the
Um,
causative Ka, or they're
like
the Ka of the
why
word.
like why insert this floaty here? Like it's such a weird thing. And what I meant by it's been used like in retrospect, like okay,
It's a
so
gunslinger thing, right? Maybe it's a complete
well,
gunslinger reference.
it's been used in film, like when they're doing Stephen King fan like movies, they tend to take like, you know, it's like they'll take Red Rum and throw it in this movie, or they'll take like, you know, they had Pennywise in the Gunslinger in the Dark Tower movie. They had Pennywise cameo as an amusement park. You know, I mean, what does Pennywise have to do with an amusement park kind of thing?
Yeah,
Um, I feel like this cameo kind of thing, and that's what this feels like because it's so out of left park. This inflatable floaty, it's the only kitty thing in the whole book, kind of thing. There's only one other kitty thing that I can think that Jack comes across, and it's that mirror that he gives. You know that
yeah,
sail. That was the only thing that was explained that was like of a kid fashion. But I mean, we're talking about this whole story is about. I mean, the second this starts, and he goes over there and meets the captain. From that point on, Jack is pretty much a man at this point. It's about a like a boy, you know, evolving very quickly into manhood. I mean,
mhm.
um, like I I don't even know if it's a King thing or a Straub thing because it's so out of left field. It's like, why this floaty? And I mean, we're talking about it's a simple like 2 word thing that he wrote in. Why not safety raft or like
It
boat?
could have quite literally been anything. It could have been water wings. It could have been one of those lifesavers. You know, the white ones, the big things. Give them two of those, and they just freaking float in, and they can paddle in. Right?
You
They can
have
just use
these
their feet.
you have these magical creatures that turn out to be friends. Why not just magically take them? I,
Yeah, like
I
go on
was
their tentacles, and they just float them in instead of having to
I
deflect bullets and shit.
I
I
feel
know
like
it's
there's I feel like the floaty is some kind of jab, cameo, Easter egg, something. There's something behind because it comes at there's no rhyme, reason. There's never a moment in the book where like
no.
Sonny
Then
like
Sammy ends up shooting it and deflates it. Remember? So
yeah,
that comes up. He shoots it, and then that's the end of the floaty. So they're not coming back out that way,
and
right?
that's another question is like he actually takes the time to shoot the raft that they came and like why take the
Why
time
bother?
like you really thought they were going to be able to go against the tide in that thing like okay. Um, let's move on.
Okay, it's a mystery.
Okay, okay. Interlude. Sloat in this world. 5. Morgan paces in the seaside hotel, thanks Richard is done, and thinks of his mother and family. He hears his father saying, "What does a man profit from losing his son?" Sonny brings news that Jack made it to the hotel. He asks if Richard was dead, reveals his plan is for Jack to get the talisman, then to steal it from him, then destroy it. Thinks it is a door, plans to go where Speedy is to set the ambush. Because, you know, he came in and told him that, hey,
Yeah,
Speedy's
yeah,
in there. Um, this right here, this whole like context, and it either just shows you how evil Morgan really is because he's even thinking of it himself, the importance of, you know, what does it mean for a human being to have a child? Well, I mean, and basically when you get down to it, I mean, to answer that question, it's what we're meant to do here. It's our evolutionary trait train. Besides that, it's like, what does that merit from a man? And in this context, if you take the son away from the father equals nothing. Like, I mean, and he is thinking of this context kind of thing, and he still is making this decision. The first thing he has Sonny is like, "Oh, Richard's dead," and Sonny's like, "No, no, no, he's with Jack. I think he's got a little kid, you know." Hey, Trav, thanks for stopping
my
by.
brother. Yeah, I was wondering that too. You know, he gets to the point where he's going to sacrifice his own kid. Like
And
Jesus.
that's kind of where this was leading to, and it's
Yeah,
kind of odd. Like you think about it. I mean, I want to believe that we figured out Phil's folly and the need of Richard, But you think about it, if they hadn't figured this out, and I don't believe Morgan did, or Jack, or anybody has figured this out. The book has not figured this out. We're supposed to figure this out as we're reading, right? Okay, so Morgan thinks that the second Richard gets to the Black Hotel, inside the Black Hotel, he's gonna die. I mean, we
Yeah,
know for a fact that Morgan's seen it. That he's seen people like that he knows that if anybody goes into this hotel besides Jack, that they're gonna die.
yeah.
So
I believed it too.
like in retrospect, I have to imagine that like at this point, that's what he's telling himself with this metaphor is that Richard's dead, that he's already dead. Like in his mind, he's
Yeah,
already kind of written him
he's
off,
already
like because
mourning him.
yeah, because he knows Jack's gonna take him to the hotel, and he's like, well, he's taking him to the hotel. I can't stop him, so I mean, he's just gonna die. Oh well.
Yep, poor kid. Oh well, all that work for nothing. Actually, I think that's more what Morgan was more worried or upset about was the fact that he put all this work into the kid, and now that's all just wasted. Not that the
Yeah,
fact that the kid's dying or going to be dead. He's pissed off at the fact that he wasted all that time and resources.
I don't know Peter Straub's background, but I do know King's, and I do know that this is a King insert with bad fathers, and this usually bad fathers have very small parts in King stories. This is one of the few stories where the father is present throughout the whole story. And this interlude right here is kind of King's definition of like his ideal of what a father represents to the son, you know? Like if the father stops thinking about the son, what are you? You know, what kind of man are you? What does that represent? And we do know that that happened to King in his life. His father left early on. His mom had to raise him, kind of thing. You know, so it makes sense this villain has this outlook, kind of
Yeah, and we're also seeing it from Richard's point of view too, because Richard's at that point where he doesn't give a shit if his dad dies because he knows he's a piece of shit.
thing. And before he had stated that he didn't. That's why he was doing the whole reality bending stuff because he didn't want to see his father as a villain. And like that, I mean, I
No,
think that's something we can all sympathize. Nobody wants to see
right,
their parents as bad guys, kind of thing.
right.
It sucks when you find that out as adults, but or as kids in this case, you know. Um, chapter 41, The Black Hotel. Richard is alive but unconscious. The talisman calls Jack. There are many speed bumps as Jack makes it across the deck. He is blasted by psychic messages. He makes it inside the dining room, and we're going to call those messages the touch. He's touched quite a bit. Um, At first, the hotel pushes him back, runs into a talking spider, which comes out of left field, and I love this talking spider. You freaking free, you freaking free. And that's all
The
the
itsy
spider is
bitsy
saying.
spider comes up the spider web.
He's just constantly on like a micro sped up version of like, and he's just saying the same thing. You freaking thief, but he's saying it like so sped up. And in the audio version, it has this accent. You know, um,
The
okay,
teeth.
yeah, but
There's teeths in the house.
you
Teeth.
freaking thief. Um, leave. Okay, so he sees the talking spider. Okay, and this is another part I he leaves Richard in the dining room, but covers him. He uses some rugs and covers him up, but he leaves him directly under where the talking spider is. Um, and the talking spider's kind of mad. You know, I mean, he's calling him a freaking thief. Um, all right, so
Yeah, great
he
idea.
he gives him the green marble. Once originally it was the magic mirror that I just mentioned briefly, so he gives him the other toy object. He moves through the hotel. The hotel talks to him more. Knowing the layout, he presses towards the lobby. The hotel, and he does this because he realizes it's a reflection of the Alhambra Inn, where his mom is currently in back in New Hampshire or wherever. Um, the hotel starts flipping back and forth. It goes from our version of the hotel to the territories version of the hotel to a mid-world version of the hotel. It's not exactly like one set world that it keeps flipping to, but it does continue to flip while he's walking through it. Um, let's see. Jack, now Jason, and now a third boy makes it to a door. A fist crashes through the door. Jack flips and sees it is a medieval knight with a huge mace. flips back and sees it is also a knight in the other world, but slightly different. The knight takes off his helmet to reveal a man of older than 300 years old, with half his head bashed in. Now three other knights appear. The first knight grabs Jake's shoulders, which they have like, I mean, it's medieval armor and it has like spikes along the knuckles and stuff like that. So this is literally like just him touching Jack's shoulder. It's like slicing him up kind of thing. Um, Injuring Jack. Jake uses the, what is it? The pig sticks? I don't remember
Was
what
that the
that is.
coin?
Pig sticks. That's what I wrote.
Thought he used the coin on him. He was using the coin. It was getting depleted as he was destroying these things one after another. They're like helmed horrors. It was something like straight out of Dungeons and Dragons when they was going through this
Oh,
freaking hotel.
he uses the guitar pick
The
because at
guitar
first
pick.
it's yeah,
Yeah.
that's why the pick, and I forgot a comma. He uses the pick, comma. He sticks it in the knight's head, and it explodes. That's why I was like, pick sticks. All right, sticks it in the knight's head and it explodes. I forgot the comma. You see, grammar is important.
One comma can wreck a sentence.
The three other knights come now, and the pick is damaged after defeating the first knight. Jack pleads no more. Speedy calls to him, saying he would have to do it and do it alone. And that's where that chapter leaves off. I do have a question here. And I don't have too many more questions, but I do have a question here. It says the hotel would keep out regular people and kill most. Why the knights and who put them there? We know Morgan can't even get inside. We know like 80% of the people mentioned in this book cannot get inside. I mean, if nobody can get inside, why the defense is inside? And not only one defense, because he's getting psychically blasted by voices and image. I mean, do you know how hard it is to focus when you have a megaphone thing blaring in your
Screaming in
head?
your ear.
Okay, that's a megaphone. Think about it inside your head, and it's blaring. Okay, that's one. Then he's having to deal with the retrospect of the world changing around him constantly, like the reality is bending around him. Most people would just be stuck, amazed at what they were seeing. And then you have these knights.
Yeah.
Who set all these defenses and why?
Yeah, we've seen this before. This is just straight out of the Gunslinger. This is like when they were underneath the what's the name of it? The Dixie Pig. And they were going through all those psychic traps that were set up in there. And that's a straight up Crimson King. So it's got to be the king. The Crimson King set all this shit up because he's the only one that had the power to kind of do this stuff. Again, it's like a house demon. Because those helmed horror things are straight up out of like something he would do for sure. So I'm sure that they were set by him, because why would they attack the guy who's supposed to be there and supposed to get the talisman? So
yeah, the
evidently
talisman's calling to him. It wants
the
him to free
talisman's
him.
calling to him. So it's obviously the talisman is a prisoner in this building, and all of these defenses are set up to keep everybody the hell out. So that screams Crimson King to me, especially the way the traps are set up.
It would have to be because I'm trying to go away from that. Like I'd like to, because that element is not in the book, even though I've used it to explain some other elements.
Yeah.
Okay, I try to think away from that first. I try to come up with the in-book explanation first before I move to that, because I do like that, and it does make a lot of sense because you think about it. There's only a couple people that he could even go in this house. Like I believe Roland could. I believe the Crimson King could. I believe like Walter could. I mean, but there's only a couple people and most of them are bad. You know what I'm saying? Like, I forget the bad guy from Black House, but I believe him. I mean, and he's an agent of the Crimson King. Mulama, I forget what his name is.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've read that one, so I can't remember the characters in that one again because I couldn't get over that stupid long ass beginning that Straub did with the explanation. Once I got past that, the book was much better. But Jesus Christ,
I want to say that. I mean, when we get to this house, that I remember reading this as a kid, and I love this book immensely as a teen. Reading this. Okay, so as an adult, Like, I still love this part, and it fits. It's not like it doesn't once you get to the house, but it does relate questions. Like, I mean, if Jack's the only person that can get in here, like, why the defenses? And is it to test Jack? Like, I mean,
And
the thing
obviously, he
is
was given the tools. That pick was specifically to destroy these
the
Helm horror
marble,
things.
the pick, because the
Yeah.
marble does end up keeping Richard safe. It keeps the spider away from him. The pick does diffuse, and it's not really the pick. I think it's more like the belief of he has the
Yeah, it's like a
power kind of
holy
thing.
item, like having a cross, like it's like with Callahan, and the thing
In
starts
the
to glow and
faith.
it destroys them. So your faith is strong. You can destroy these things because they're undead, right?
I want to say that that's what it is. All this is test for Jack. Like, that he needed to be tested before he could, you know.
Are you worthy to have the talisman? You must pass
Okay,
these tests.
so in this analogy, if these are tests and he needs to get to Phil's folly, Phil's mistake, right? What would these tests be testing him towards?
And
And we
why would
have
they
Fred.
be fatal?
Okay, so yeah, yeah. Okay, so I can tell you in my analogy that one does fit because the spider. I would say the spider test with Richard and him protecting his friend because he does leave him under the spider and he does like, and it seems like he's not, but when he leaves the marble and he covers him up, he does protect him from the spider. We find out that the spider is forced to stay up at that height because of that marble. Um, and he was going to try and go like get on Richard's legs, and because he's covered up, he can't do that either. So we do find out he does pass that test. But like the knights, I'm trying to think, what would that represent? Like, I don't know.
It's
I'm
like a
getting too.
physical battle, like he's outmatched massively. He has no
He can't. He
weapons
can't
except
even
for the
fight
pick.
physically. He even tries
No,
to
he's
at
too
first.
small. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, these guys are armored with freaking weapons,
And you're talking about just
huge
when he
mace.
touches his arm, and it's they have spikes that are all over
Yeah,
the
well, also the
armor.
armor would be ridged with blades on the edge of it. That's why it's cutting into his shoulder. I mean, that remind me of the Battle Ragers, right? The
Yeah, yeah,
dwarven armor.
yeah.
That's all just the whole thing. The whole armor is just one big massive weapon, and those things would go into a frenzy. They had that Battle Rager juice that they would drink, and they would just throw themselves literally at the enemy and shred them to pieces just by having a epileptic fit. So that's what I kind of thought of, but I thought of helm horrors. So these things were like big and all
The only
kind of
thing
the same with dead creatures inside them.
I'm really thinking about this, but I would say the test arm, so he protects Richard. The psychic glass would be like courage of self, like, or
Yeah,
no, I believe the knights would be like courage of self, faith in yourself, that kind of thing.
it's like the
Especially if
quest for
you're
the Holy Grail with Indiana Jones. Remember, they were all the different tests that they had to go through. The
Mhm.
one with the blades, and then the invisible bridge, the test of faith, and
Uh,
then the
Monty
cups. You
Python
drink
and
the
the Holy
cups and the
Grail.
poison,
Hmm.
right? The talisman is the Holy Grail at the end.
I
But yeah,
believe it's like that, and it's set up like that. And when you read it, you don't see that these are these tests that he has to pass, but you think about it along the journey. If he wouldn't have come across this, and this, he wouldn't have been able to make it through the house. Like losing Wolf and becoming strong and determined to press on. Like I don't think he would have like made it past the blast of this thing telling no, you're not going to be able to save your mom even with the tell. Um, All right, well, let's move on. Chapter 42, Jack and the Talisman. Jack thinks of his mom's favorite movie she made, a western called Last Train to Hangtown, and thinks of Andy Ellis. In a moment, um, what did I write here? Andy throws on a gang and head towards his death. Oh, yeah, okay, I get it. Flipping back and forth to Jack and Jason while he's doing this. He's literally like merging into, because at this point it's explained there's three boys. The book never clarifies what the third boy is, but he's morphing it, and I believe this to be his mid-world counterpart. Because there's a lot of those hints here, especially when we were talking about the axis of all world and stuff like that. Um, so he's flipping back and forth to Jack and Jason, and he's holding the pick. He dispatches the first knight. Lily thinks she hears Jack in that moment, begs Jack to come home. Back to Jack, and he bests the other two knights up the stairs one last night. Flips back to Jason to Jack. He starts flipping through many different worlds, many. And then it's stated like many, many, not just the ones that we've known through the Dark Tower series. I mean, we're talking about like way more. Maybe what Roland saw on the rose kind of thing, because they do mention the blade of grass. Haha. The
And what
purple
Jake
blade of
said,
grass.
there's more worlds than these.
hmm and it's always a blade of grass. Okay,
Yeah. Bluegrass,
purple, purple.
purple
Flipping
grass.
through many worlds, many he climbs the stairs and the pig falls apart. Now having to avoid mace blows, he hears Speedy tells him he has the magic inside him and he has all along. He slips in close, grabs the knight's helmet, whispers for him to leave this world, and the knight does. Jack presses forward, sees a door with a green light, echoing under it and below. Jump to Sunny and Morgan and learn Morgan has whiplashes on his leg that he got for betraying the queen, and found out by Parkus. Parkus literally gives him those lashes, and this is actually mentioned previously about Speedy giving Morgan some lashes and Morgan hiding those lashes. Betraying the queen, found out by Parkus. Parker, now on the ground, an earthquake happens. Morgan, realizing the Guardians were stopped. Morgan states that they will win. Lean, we learn Richard's twin died of territory sickness, and that's all they call it. Sonny shoots the raft flat. Second earthquake. Jack now in the room with the talisman, and Jack asks the talisman to come to him, and it does. Power of the white, the axis of all worlds, Phil's folly has been solved. No questions on that one. And I mean, you're talking about like, it's so weird how the chapter's set up, but such a magical chapter in its same sense. Like the fact that we're flipping through all these different characters. We got Jack and his mom, and it's such a. I want to say this whole scene is set up for movie magic because it feels like you're watching like a scene in a movie because Jack's touched about to get the talisman. We flip over to his mom. His mom is like, Jack, please come home, I'm dying. We flip over to Morgan, and Morgan's like, no, he's gonna do it, but I'm gonna get it when he comes out. F this dude over here, and he's whipping and flattening. I mean, the whole like the way we're jumping from this and that, like it's so weird. It could have just been written that Jack goes into this room, grabs the talisman, walks out. Um,
Yeah.
I still love this chapter. I thought it was magical kind of thing. Such a weird chapter as well because you get to this chapter thinking you're at the end and still realize you got a big chunk of the book left.
Yeah, there was still quite a bit to get for him to get back to his mother and the whole bit.
I mean, I think that's one of the deepest, like, hardest part of the struggle is not that Jack is going from one side of the nation to the other as a 12-year-old. No, he's got to do it twice. Like, um, all right, but the second time is a little better and it's sped up. And all right, so chapter 45, in which many things are resolved on the beach. Jack sees Sonny and Morgan. Sonny makes it to Jack, and Jack flips and now has Osmond in front of him. Osmond goes to whip him, and Jack flips, now having to knife fight Sonny. He uses the talisman and melts Sonny's face off. Now with Morgan left, he asks Richard to sit this out. Richard wants to go all the way. Jack states he will have to kill Morgan, and Richard knows this. Excuse me. They head to Speedy, and Morgan manages to trip Jack, hiding behind a rock. I love this part and what comes next. You talk about like out of all the things that he could have done. I mean, he's hiding behind a rock and he waits for this kid. I mean, you talk about how high school of him to like
Just put his
wait.
foot out and trip him.
Yeah, he's like, I
Like we
got
do
you,
in school.
sucker. And
Gotcha.
then after he trips, he proceeds to like kick him in the nuts. It's like, I mean, you're an adult. Why wouldn't you go full force for his face, his chest? Are you going? You talking about like Morgan had like this like, oh, I'm fighting kids, I'm gonna fight him like a kid kind of moment. Like okay, so he's hiding behind a rock. He trips Jack. Um Jack drops the talisman. Richard hits a rock when he falls and has a massive gash on the side of his head. Morgan kicks Jack in the nuts. Jack meets Morgan of Oriz, finally, wearing a cape and a loose suit, wielding a lightning rod pendant. Jack asks to beg Morgan and manages to kick Morgan in the face, grabs the talisman and flips. Morgan tries to get Jack to break the talisman, using some lightning that misses Jack and vanishes behind snow, and he starts laughing. And basically, he uses like multiple magical spells, and one of them is this like it's kind of like a darkness spell, but it's just a ton of snow that appears around him, and Morgan is kind of like in the snow. He starts laughing at him. Lily sees a bird that looks like Slope and tells Lily Jack is dying, cuts her hand using um, a vial of pseudo. I don't know. Yeah, but she basically cuts herself to break the spell kind of thing. Morgan taunts Jack, slow trying to knock the talisman out of his hand. Jack figures Morgan is using the snow spell and is continually flipping and gains the upper hand, and that's exactly what he's doing, like to mess with Jack. Like Jack, he's having trouble locating him in the snow, and it's not because he can't really find him. It's because he's flipping through worlds, and every time he does, he's moving locations, kind of thing. It's kind of smart.
Yeah,
Richard
the
wakes.
typical villain though of taunting and doing the
Yeah, it
stupid
is.
thing instead of going for the kill.
Instead of doing the kill, yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, he's doing this lightning rod, and he's literally shooting it around Jack, and sometimes Richard, but not
he's just
exactly
toying with them, cat and
at
mouse.
them. Yeah. Richard wakes and is a little lost, sees Jack as a hero, sees his father, Morgan, standing over Parker, and Richard threatens to kill them unless Jack drops the talisman. Jack does. Morgan shoots the talisman, and it magnifies the lightning bolt, shoots it back to Morgan, and fries Morgan through all worlds. It didn't just kill him in this world, it killed him in every world that he existed in. Jack rushes to the talisman and heals Richard and Speedy. And he does this by rubbing the stone over them. Um, no questions on that chapter, but you
Yeah,
kind of hit the
explain what the
nail.
talisman is. It looks like it's like a softball or something. It's a ball of white energy.
Yeah. And you kind of hit the nail. Like, I mean, what a goofball villain. Like, he's such a cool villain up until this last fight. And then he does this
And
whole,
he was a
like,
dummy.
hiding behind a rock and kicking. I mean,
But
bro,
it
you had
shows
a
you
light.
how insecure he is. Like he's a smart guy, but he's also massively insecure, right?
Like, I mean, you had the lightning rod and you got him on the ground. Like, the talisman's away from him. Why not fry him then and there? And then you do this
Yeah,
whole, like, hokey hopping around thing and laughing
they
at him. I mean,
monologue. They
yeah,
monologue. That's what criminals do. In
you
every
do.
single comic book that we have is the monologuing.
And we know in Stephen King book, he likes the evil defeats itself kind of thing. And in this scenario, I mean, it really does. You're talking about like how simple. I mean, could you imagine like you as a grown man having to fight what is described as Jake? Now, yes, he's 12, but honestly, he's kind of more like an 8 or 9 year old in description, like size
Yeah,
wise, like
yeah. He's
build
not a big dude. He's
wise.
just a little kid.
No. And Morgan's supposed to be like six something, like 200 something pounds. Morgan Riz is supposed to be bigger because he's got a big old
He
beer
should just like
belly.
be able to pick him up by the scruff of the neck and shake him like a rag doll. But no, instead he does the whole monologuing. But I mean, that's the way it works out. So, and then he blasts the talisman and then ends up killing himself. That was a straight up the Lost Ark type of thing. That's what I was
Yeah, it
thinking. My
was.
buddy's face got melted off too. It's
Yeah,
like
that
Indiana Jones was completely like he didn't even need to be in the movie. The Nazis got
this
the Ark, they opened it, and they all died. And Indy didn't
the
have to do a damn thing.
and also Morgan sees what he does to Sonny. He sees that he uses the talisman to burn away like
He melts
half
him.
of Sonny's face, like, and then like Like what? I mean, no, this just goes into like more like how like not smart Morgan was. Like that was his only conclusion was, well, I can't get the talisman. I need to destroy it, and him not knowing that he couldn't destroy it, kind of thing. Not only can you not destroy it, it's gonna attack you back, kind of thing.
Yeah, and
And I
Morgan's not
said,
the type of person to do things hastily too. So, I mean, to experiment and expose himself like that to just shoot the thing, he should have known that something could have backfired on him. Again, being smart, but evidently not. So,
he took so
uh,
many steps in other regards where I believe he was smart, and it's like when it comes to like the main objectives of the story, like nope, no intelligence. Like, I mean, you could have had like Sonny, or I mean, you could have done a lot of different things with this thing. Like, you could have had Sonny jumped him when he came out, and had Sonny try to touch it, and like, oh, that didn't work.
yeah,
Maybe
send your werewolves in first, and
like
send
give a
all your
werewolf the
daughters.
lightning rod, like.
Or why didn't the Crimson King or whoever he was superior talking to him tell him how to destroy this thing? Like somebody must have had that knowledge. What was he just going to experiment?
It's one of my like sad imagination parts of the book because we really fully don't really know his evil plans, like what he really wanted to do or what he was doing. We see elements of it that were, around what he, I mean, in talks of it, but we never fully understand like what Morgan was truly doing with the technology and magic kind of thing.
It was
Eh,
almost like it was for, was it just purely profit or power or what?
yeah,
It's like a true story of Breaking Bad, where he
yeah,
started off with good intentions and then things just slowly. And from his perception, he thought he was doing the right thing, but he wasn't. He
still
was
the good
just
guy, yeah, kind of thing.
yeah, he
Because
thought he
even the
was
way
the
he
good
talks
guy.
to Lily, he's like, "Yeah, I'll be sending Jack to college." Like,
Yeah,
you were
like I'm
already
doing good
hunting this
stuff
dude
for you.
down. You were already hunting Jack down, trying to kill him. Come on now. All
Yeah.
right, so chapter 46, Another Journey. Healed with a wave of fire, Speedy gets them to flip, and they make Parkus. They rest. Jack sees the Black Castle, told to rest, talk to Parkus, and stay in the territories. Told Speedy he still has a couple of years to go, and they would see each other from time to time. Told walk about 5 miles east and find a huge tree. Flip in the redwood forest and a station next to the tree in Storyville, California. Thanks Jack and says he is proud of Jack. Jack sleepwalks, making it to the tree, contemplates the journey. Richard and Jack Flip almost hit by a car that has some kids that thinks they're ghosts. They make it to the bus station. Richard breaks, and Jack tells Richard he loves him. They find a Cadillac with a 7 foot tall wolf that Jack thinks is Wolf, but turns out to be Wolf's brother. They get into the limo. In the back, Speedy leaves a postcard and a guitar case filled with $20 bills. They drive east. As they travel, in good fashion, Richard states he is forgetting and wants that. Jack confirms he can live with them, that Richard can live with them. They pass where Wolf died and his brother mourns. 5 days and they make it to the into New Hampshire. And that's where this chapter ends. I honestly love this chapter. I mean, there's like no small complaints, blah blah blah. I do have a question, but you talk about like one of the best end ups, like kind of tie ups to a story, where I already thought the story was going to end kind of right there, like he was just going to flip back to his mom, and then we get this whole thing, getting to meet Wolf's brother because everybody, Wolf is like a favorite character, and getting to find some semblance that he carries on and has some like deeper connection is a wonderful thing. But that connection goes right to him. How did Parkus know to send Wolf?
Yeah, and where the hell was Parkus all this damn time too?
Mm,
That's what something I
mm,
thought. Where the hell was the gunslinger, man? Like Jesus Christ. He shows up conveniently at the end. Are you kidding me?
just for a moment too, just enough to tell Jack that he needs to rest and that he's proud of him and he loves him, and then he takes off.
Obviously,
And
Parkus has got the touch, right? So he's like
I
Parker.
want to say yes, and we
So
do
he's
know
got,
that he is a gunslinger. So
yeah,
I want to assume that during this time he was kind of trying to do gunslinger stuff. I don't know.
But it's
Now
funny
with
how
that,
Wolf. Why would he send Wolf's brother? Like, how did he know? Yeah, how did he know it was Wolf's brother?
how did they know the connection?
Yeah,
I mean, nobody knew Jack had met Wolf because the only person that ever runs into Jack and Wolf is Morgan, and Morgan's not running the Parkus and telling him like, "Hey, you know Jack met Wolf?" Like, no. So how did Parkus know to send
it's got to be
Wolf? Like,
Ka. Ka is the
easy,
only
easy
answer.
answer.
Yep, we're gonna go with the simple answer of Ka because it makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna let you go with that because I don't have an explanation for that. But it is something that like how would he have known? I mean, not only I get that Jack needs a ride home. I get that, but like, how would he have figured out the connection? Like, where would he have known exactly where Jack would have been? Like, oh, okay.
Got to be a premonition of some type.
The touch. It's the touch and
It's a
call.
touch. It's the only thing that makes sense. Yeah, the touch and Ka.
So
So
chapter 47, Journey's End. Jack does remember everything. Jack mainly sleeps till New Hampshire, up to Arcadia. 3 months later, they pull up to the Alhambra Inn. Creedence Clearwater's revival plays. Richard stays in the car. 9/21, 1981. Jack holds the talisman at the sea. Lily now only a 78-pound corpse. She is on the very end. Cancer, bed sores, pneumonia, no food for weeks. Morgan fired the staff and most of the shops around. Killed power to the block. Lily, now almost fading into a coma, gets up and sees Jack has the talisman in the window. Jack, mad, dashes to his mom. Richard sees a bright light from the window inside the room. The talisman lights the room, and Jack finds her. He picks her up and gets her back in bed. She is fading, knowing he can't heal his mom. And the same way, he picks it up and pulses it, and he understands. It starts to change shape, and he puts it in her hands. Lights and sound move all over her body. A smoky membrane appears over her, killing the evil within, healing her. Jack sees a multiverse of moments. His mother becomes light and is healed within a second. The great they greet and hug. The talisman disappears. Um, my question here is: does Lily Sawyer become the talisman herself, or does it do something else? And I want to apply this to what we have learned about Phil's folly. Yeah.
I think it's just fulfilled whatever it was meant to fulfill, and now it's moved on to the next thing. It's kind of like the rose. That's what I like to think of it as, like the rose. It's done what it needs to do, and it's moved on.
I
Maybe
do
some of
want to.
it does absorb because we know that Jack ends up with that power in him, like a little, just touching it has transferred some of that power to him. And even
Mhm.
though the talisman is gone, he still has a little bit of that power, as we find in the Black House in the next book. He's got
Mhm.
kind of a touch. It helps him in his career throughout his life.
It does. I want to say it didn't disappear like the book says, and I want to say it's something more like you. I want to say because Jack completed the quest, it fulfilled what it was supposed to do, what it was designed to do, and it was like Phil's mistake, and then you know
Been
Jack
rectified.
fulfilling, yeah, Jack fulfilling that mistake and renewing not only the queen but his mom, his family, and also stopping the evil that was coming for his family, kind of thing. Um, I believe, like you said, it not only like fulfilled its purpose, but added to Jack himself because we do know he gains more powers after this, or maybe not gains, but maybe some of his
It's like
powers are
residual.
enhanced.
Yeah,
Yeah.
enhanced. Yeah, augmented.
Mhm. Because we do know he had the touch to a degree and stuff like that. I want to say after this, it's definitely enhanced kind of thing. We do have one little tiny tidbit. We have conclusion. Lily the Queen opens her eyes, followed by a quote by Mark Twain about most of the companions surviving. Um, on his said quest, and same thing goes for Jack's quest. Most of the companions. No, they didn't. Only Richard does. No. And that is the talisman. That is the. I don't have a question on the conclusion. I do love this book, but there are definitely like problems that are in it. I mean, it has holes. It has.
His name
I
is
would.
Straub.
Yeah. Um, and some of the same complaints appear more so in the second book, because we've already mentioned that the very beginning. I mean, we're talking about, what is it, 180 pages of Black House is nothing but descriptiveness of a town,
Yeah,
that you really don't
they
need
don't need.
now, because they
Like
don't
it
even
could have
really
been
go into the.
fulfilled a lot sooner. I know the biker gang was important, but holy shit, the description of it just
I love all the biker gang stuff, but it's really the description of the town and what the town. I mean, you're talking about, this is like the third or fourth book of him, having a town as a bad guy. So it's not like a foreign thing. And in that book, it was presented as a foreign thing, and that's the issue. Like, if you've read any of Stephen King or even seen any of his movies, it's kind of a prevalent topic. Like, oh, Salem's Lot, bad town. Needful Thing, bad town. Bad town. It's kind of a recurring theme. So
yep,
to spend
Dreamcatcher.
yeah,
Yeah,
to
Tommy
spend
Knockers.
180 pages just describing why this town is a bad town. Ugh. But the rest of that book is fantastic. Once you make it to the biker gang,
Yes.
that's where it
Once I
starts getting
skipped over
good.
those and started like skimming pages and got to the meat and potatoes, and it was thanks to actually to you because you said just stick with it, it gets better.
It
And I was
does, and
like,
it was
Jesus, 'cause I
it's
was ready to drop it because after a while I just stopped reading it for like a couple of weeks and said, all right, I need a break from this bullshit.
in all my Stephen King reads, and I'm talking about like every single one that I can think of. It has the hardest intro of a book, maybe not even King, maybe of any book I've ever come across, just because it's so descriptive and really not needed, and to get to the actual meat of the story is a trek in itself.
Yeah.
It almost reminds me of the Similarian in a sense, because the beginning of the Similarian is really hard to get past, because you're just reading genetic pages and family heritages, and it reads a lot like the Bible does, until you get to where the stories start happening. It's a different story, but I want to say that's but I haven't read all King, so that
And
but I mean that is.
I blame the editors. Like, where was the editors in this? Like, why did they just blindly say, "Oh yeah, this is great"? Why didn't they stop them and say, "No, this is too much. You need to cut this
Or
shit
could
out"?
it could be the other way around, where they wanted that. I mean, that's why we had the smaller version of the Stand forever, because the editors didn't want, they didn't want it to be that size or whatever. And now, I mean, now we have like the revised and edited version of the Stand. I want to say that is, it could be a major issue, especially with two writers. I'd imagine they were dealing with not just, because I don't think they were under the same imprint at the time, the same publishing house kind of thing.
Wow,
So it might not even been one editor.
it's been one hell of a journey, Mike. One
It
hell of a
has.
journey. And I'm
And
the
that is
last guy
something.
standing.
Yeah, you are out of our quartet, and yeah, a lot like the Dark Tower, right? I mean, there was only one that made it to the end. I mean, we did. She was granted some friends, but technically Susanna was the only one that made it out of.
Yeah.
Um, but this is something we need to talk about. But this will be the end of season one of Walk Along the Break. There will be a massive break in between this, as I pause this Walk Along the Beams. I have no idea when I'm going to bring it back, if I'm going to bring it back, kind of thing. I imagine I am. I love talking about King. Um, but I would like some Saturdays off, and I want to read some other King and not have to just break down the books, kind of thing. And I know Steve wants his Saturdays back, kind of thing. Um, but this has been like a hell of a journey. I mean, we've been through the whole Dark Tower, all the comics, most of the connected. Well, not really.
Adjacent books. Some of the
Yeah,
adjacent books.
two, like three of them. I mean, and that's going to be the fun part of season two when I get that going, because there's a ton of connected books out there that we have not touched base on, and hopefully some more that he's coming out with, because he's in talks of doing the Talisman Part 3. Um, but yeah, until further notice, I mean, all I can say is just watch out for my community tab on YouTube and maybe on my IG. And one day I might post like, "Hey, season 2 of Walk Along the Beam's coming." Um, but Steve, I do want to thank you. I want to thank all the people that took part in this journey:
Yep.
Naman, Trev, Aaron,
Yep.
you, Phil. It was fantastic, and I had a real blast doing it. Every episode was fun. I mean, even
It was.
I mean, just discovering new stuff, looking at stuff from different angles.
That's the
Yeah,
part that
but
I love, seeing it from all your guys' different perspectives. It really made these books even better than they were before. Because now the
I
next
mean,
time I read through these books again, I'm going to have all of your perceptions
right.
along with my own.
And hopefully, people at home are watching this and taking this and relaying it to their conversations or thoughts towards the books. I don't. But guys, we are almost at our 2 hour mark. This was a perfect episode. We will see you eventually one day, maybe, who knows? But until then, long days and pleasant nights. Y'all have a great one. We will see y'all maybe. Bye.